Hello and welcome to the Cheese Room Podcast YouTube show. This is Brendan, your host for this evening, coming at you from Podcast World. I'm doing YouTube now. There's a bit of switcheroos going on. Callers taking some time off, and we're nearly on time as well. So something we want to make sure that we keep going when I'm host is that we'll be punctual. Two guests joining me today. I'll go around the room. First up is Craig. How are you, mate?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me back on, Brendan. Nice to be here and looking forward to talking about Spurs.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's we've got plenty to get through. We're also joined by Becky. How are things, Becky?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I was at the game yesterday, and I was at Wednesday at Old Trafford as well. But yeah, let's dissect this as best we can.
Wow. Yes, the team owes you one after those two games, surely, Becky. Jesus. But just on how was it the experience? About we're talking about the weather conditions. We'll talk about that bit further on. But how was it? The experience. Was it as bad as it seemed, or was it still okay, even though we lost?
Me personally, yesterday was better than Wednesday, but then I don't think it could be any worse than Wednesday. Yeah, the weather was the highlight of the half time. I think a lot of people nipped back into the concourse, and for those of us that stayed, it was like a light show. It was like bright pink, and you're just watching the stewards get absolutely drenched because it was like biblical. It was so intense.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use, Becky. Biblical. It's the first time I've actually been rained on in my seat because obviously where we were, it was all blowing into us. I got absolutely drenched, but yeah, it was impressive weather, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it was thunder as well.
Was that the highlight? Because there was a picture of people like coming in at halftime or something and just jumping the barriers because the rain just got them. Have you seen that video go? Oh man, yeah. No, we'll crack into the game and hello to everyone in the chat. Please do remember to give us a like, and we'll get to your questions, as many of your questions as we can through the show. We will be joined by Seb later on as well. He's finishing off recording the podcast because they were delayed over the weekend. I was in no fit state to pod, so that will be out. So you got two. You got the YouTube show and the pod coming out tonight. Let's start, as we always do, with the lineup. Becky, I'll start with you. So 5 changes, I believe, from Old Trafford. We kind of wanted to see some changes, but I think there's Seb. But were they the right changes, in your opinion?
Hi, Seb. Well, we left Chester at 10 o'clock and got down to sort of Tottenham for sort of 2, which is good going. And then we parked up and then wandered in and met a few people before and then ambled over to the ground. And because we'd asked for Jack to wave a flag, I went over and got the Lloris flag and we got ourselves all sorted out and I was waving the flag. And then the team came up on the big screens and it hadn't kind of occurred to me to kind of look at, normally I make a point of an hour before kickoff to have a look at the team, and then was quite surprised with how many changes he had made. I think after Wednesday we were hoping there would be 1 or 2, but to have 5 changes and, like Romero and Højbjerg not being on the bench, which you then start thinking, oh, is there an injury? And I think I heard later on that there was slight knocks that they were carrying, and then Skip coming on, which, bless him, it's been such a long time with his injury, and that was quite nice to kind of see, how he would be. And then often with Longley and Davis and Sessegnon and Perisic, that's something they have kind of been rotated fairly recently anyway. So that wasn't massively shock. But like I said, Sanchez was maybe enforced, maybe not enforced for Romero. But so quite a few changes. That's kind of a positive way to kind of go into it. We needed a lift from Wednesday. And, I think all the people around the club that kind of try and get the atmosphere going with the flags and songs and, putting stuff out on social media to try and kind of, get everybody. The fans are doing their bit. To have a kind of changed team like that, I think was a positive way to start it, certainly.
And Craig, what were your thoughts with the changes? Sanchez, as Becky said, probably the big one. Romero not even on the bench, so we're hoping it's a slight knock. But were you surprised to see so many changes on half the team?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was more surprised the fact that it came out of the blue, didn't it? Both Romero and Højbjerg. It wasn't even in anyone's thinking. Normally, the jungle drums are going on Twitter and everything else to say the potential knocks there, but there was nothing. So I was really surprised with that. And in terms of the freshen up of the team, I'm with Becky. I think it needed something to change. I think it was good to see a bit of something different. It wouldn't, preferably. I think I think a lot of people realised yesterday how important Højbjerg is to this team. Actually, by not having him in there would be my initial feedback in that. And I think I was more concerned about him not being in the team, because I do think he's a glue. And I know there's a lot of hate towards Sanchez, but he's done well in the main when he's played. I know, so I wasn't overly worried about Sanchez necessarily, but yeah, certainly Højbjerg was my biggest concern.
One thing I'll come on to Seb on this as well, but I'll start with you still, Craig. Was the sort of the Sanchez Emerson axis of tomfoolery? Surely, like Newcastle would have seen that, and Joelinton was playing to the left, so our right, attacking. And do you think that the Newcastle would have seen that and thought, right, let's target that side?
I absolutely think so. I mean, I think what we're seeing a constant theme now, aren't we, where teams are pressing us up high in every single game, and particularly when you've got that axis of Sanchez and Emerson, it is a weak spot for us. But we keep persisting in this playing out from the back, and it is creating us issues. But we're going to get that. We've got to learn. We've either got to deal with it and figure a way to break those presses when they're coming, or we've got to do something different, haven't we? And sometimes go a bit more direct and take the direct option to beat the press. But it's, when Emerson plays anyway, we always know his strengths and Sanchez's strengths aren't necessarily playing out from the back. So what I would have happened, or what I would like to think would happen, is that we would note that and do something a bit different and try something different, whether that's playing out the other way or, like I say, being a bit more direct. But what I do think we lacked yesterday with Højbjerg was that player from midfield prepared to come in and take that ball, come in and command it. I didn't see that same commanding play from the other three in midfield yesterday for me. I think that's what perhaps didn't help us.
Seb, welcome. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Agree with a lot of what's been said. I've just actually done the pod, so talking over similar points, particularly concerning Højbjerg and Craig. It's like you were listening in. It's pretty much said exactly what I thought. We've got a big problem at the back now. Funnily enough, I don't think the problem is that Sanchez Emerson issue. If anything, yesterday our problems came from the other side. With Sessegnon and Longley. I'm not big. I don't fear Sanchez. I know people have got very strong views on Emerson, and I kind of haven't. I'm kind of neither for him or against him really. I think he's a competent player, not a very good attacker. But obviously it was a surprise to see. To not have Romero and Højbjerg there. Romero's been a little bit out of form, in my opinion, but the rumour is that he picked up a knock in training and was actually okay to play, but requested that he didn't. Now that's a concern, obviously, but players are now wanting to protect themselves, I think, before the World Cup. Højbjerg had a more serious, or not serious, but was definitely ruled out. And yeah, we really missed him. It was when you're playing this, in my opinion, this awful system of playing out from the back. And me and Becky watched the United game together on Wednesday. It was awful. I mean, it wasn't just a little bit bad or a little bit dodgy. It was every 30 seconds in the first half, shots raining down from us giving the ball away 10 yards, 20 yards from our goal. It looked like we persisted with it again on Sunday. The problem with it on Sunday was that nominally, as Craig said, Højbjerg is the one from midfield that drops in between, yesterday it would have been Sanchez and Dyer into that position, picks the ball up from deep, and then he's the one playing to your advanced wing backs. So your wing backs push slightly higher up because obviously your midfielder has dropped deeper. Does that make sense? So Højbjerg drops deep. It enables, if Højbjerg's followed deep, the wing backs to push slightly up towards the halfway line, and then he plays a ball. He's got more options. Yesterday, Bissouma or Skip or Bentancur or whoever, no one fulfilled that role. And yesterday we saw an instance where Dyer picked the ball up on the edge of the area under little to no pressure, and he did not know what to do. He looked, he was pointing, he moved the ball forward 2 or 3 yards, didn't know what to do. In the end, he kicked it directly out of play. Now, this is a huge worry. This is professional football and professional footballers who shouldn't fall to bits if one player is missing from the system. I found it really alarming. And I mean, I covered this on the pod, but we're like a machine, but we're not a very well-oiled machine. And if we miss one part, then it all seems to fall to bits. And with Kulusevski out, that appears to be a problem that affects the machine. Yesterday it was Højbjerg. That appeared to be a problem that affected the machine. And it's not just his positional sense; it was his leadership skills as well, I felt.
But don't you think, Seb, that's where what we missed from Højbjerg yesterday is that someone on the pitch taking control. And whether you like Højbjerg or people's views on Højbjerg, for me, he's amazing. I love him. But you see him, and every time he plays, certainly when I'm watching him live, and perhaps you see the game differently when you're in the stadium, his command of the pitch. He's the one shouting to Dyer, to Romero, to Lingard, to Davis, give me the ball, put the ball there, pass the ball there. He's all over it. And yesterday, that was non-existent. And I firmly believe, like you say, Dyer, I remember that example of Dyer. And he didn't have, like you say, Højbjerg there telling him what to do with the ball. He didn't have that Højbjerg dropping deep, which was his programme pass, isn't it? That's what he, in the system, as you describe, he's meant to do. In the absence of anyone else doing that, he was lost. And it is a concern.
It don't appear that any of our players, 1 to 11, have any freedom within the system or free thought. So they don't deviate off the plan. And look, we'll come on to the goals and even the goal that we scored. And Becky, you can tell us more about the atmosphere in the stadium. I was speaking to Paul about this. When we got to 2-1, it didn't change anything. No. Because it's a system and a machine that's ingrained. So, okay, we score, but actually there's no free thought. There's no, right, now we'll attack. There's no one on the pitch going, I'll grab this. I will make the difference. It's that we play this way, and this is the way that we're going to play, and hopefully we'll score. But if we don't, well, we've played the same system, and that's what we do.
It's like you were saying to me, wasn't it, on Wednesday, that it's very high risk, this kind of playing out from the back thing that arguably Dyer and Sanchez struggle with anyway, and Royal, and to some extent Longley a bit less today, Sessegnon, Reece. You could kind of go on, and like you were saying, it's high risk. And Bentancur was the one who was trying to kind of be more progressive yesterday, and he was kind of spraying passes as well. And then the conditions arguably, but yeah, I think you're right. It's just this kind of there isn't anyone to sort of take it, and I think Basuma wants to be that person, but he's been told to kind of sit quite deep as well, and he can't do that, and he can only go so far. And the thing that I noticed from Wednesday and yesterday, the same thing is the second balls. We aren't there for second balls. If the pass doesn't come off, they're lunging in for passes they can't retrieve back, and like maybe in the back of their head they're thinking about World Cup and overstretching and this sort of thing. But we're just losing second balls all over the place, and we were in the first half at Leicester as well. And that just puts the other team on the front foot. That also then drops the atmosphere because everyone's thinking, oh gosh, we're not getting second balls. The amount of time people shouting behind me yesterday, second balls, we're not getting second balls, we're not winning headers in the air. Sonny's not really jumping when we're lumping it upfield because they've run out of options that way. Sonny's not jumping, and then of course Kane is doing that work, and then people are getting on Sonny, and it's all just a bit limp. And I'm trying to hold on to the fact that it will just be like this until the 12th of November. And then when we get them back in January, we'll see what we saw from sort of March onwards last year, because that's the only way I can kind of explain it away, because I know we've got injuries, but they played that system for parts of last season, and it's more or less the same sort of players that are starting. It's just very limp and half-hearted, and I think that's what's upsetting everybody watching it.
Can I ask you guys a question, right? I covered this on the pod as well, right? So if I divide the players up into 3 positional sections, right? So if you go position, group 1 is Lloris. Yesterday was obviously Lloris, Emerson, Sanchez, Dyer, Longley, and Sessegnon. Call that group 1. Group 2, Skip.
Back five.
Skip. Well, yeah, but Group 2, Skip, Bissouma, and
Bentancur.
Sorry, and Group 3, Son and Kane. Now, footballing ability-wise, who's your preferred group? Just football ability. If you had to pick one. Yeah. So who's your weakest group?
Group 1.
Defenders.
So why are we constantly giving them the ball?
The ball, yeah.
Well, that's usually where attacks build up from. We're going to play long ball.
But you have to get it in quickly to 2 and 3, to Group 2 and Group 3. There's no point Group 1 knocking that ball around between them. You're asking for trouble. There is a mistake in there somewhere. They are not good enough. I don't understand how a world-class manager can not see that if you give your weaker players the ball more often, there is going to be more chances that you get caught. Me and Becky at United, right? I don't think we could quite believe what we were seeing, because like I said, it was every 30 seconds and nothing changed. And I really, really struggle. For me, it's football's quite a simple game. But if you're going to give your weakest players the ball 5 yards from goal, what do you expect?
And I think that was the difference yesterday. We said, because the supporters that have arguably asked for 3-5-2 for so long, and they were saying we need 3-5-2 and we need Bissouma in the middle and we need 3 in the middle. And we've had that for 2 games now, and the second half of Leicester. But since then, we've had that for 2 games and we've lost them both. Is this idea that there's no one to change it up. It's going back to that squad depth again. And although he's saying Moore is coming back from injury, and to be fair to Skip, I think did quite well for 65 minutes, considering it's such a long time since he's played. Is this idea there's no option to change it? Before Richarlison got injured, before Kulusevski got injured, they could play in a different formation, and if things weren't working, they could change formation. But whether it's through stubbornness or whether it is the injuries, we're now stuck in this formation, and all we're doing is sort of slotting players. Like yesterday, it went back a little bit to, well, we'll bring Davis on, we'll bring Doherty on, and then at the end we had Doherty and Royal on, and we had like 6 peoples at the back, and it was like, I said to Jack, I was like, Doherty's playing right wing, kind of ish, sort of, and it was like we don't have that option to kind of change it up again, and that's, I think, you watch the games, we go behind, they carry on. As soon as it goes out for a goal kick, Luis gets the ball, side foots it to Dyer. Dyer sort of looks whether to give it to Sanchez and it just carries on and repeats. And like you said, the pressure just keeps coming because they haven't got that quality to kind of turn it to somebody and off we go. And if Son's not making headers in the air, and it's just, and don't get me wrong, I thought the first sort of 10, 15 minutes yesterday was a lot better. You know, there's some of the chances that they had, but it was this idea that once we go behind, what are we doing now to change it? And we aren't really. You know, looked lively when he came on, but
I'm sure we'll get through it as we go through the pattern of the game. But I think the thing for me was, it's that point, Becky, you've just said, and Seb mentioned it earlier, is there's no mixing or anything. Nothing changes. So when we were in any other game in the Premier League, 2-0 down, you get that first goal back to make it 2-1. The game changes, doesn't it? The axes of the game completely changes in favour of the team that's just scored, right? And yesterday, nothing. it was nothing had changed. It was such a bizarre thing to witness, really, and that is for me. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not negative at all. I think we're in a blip. I think Brendan, we talked about it off cam. We're in a blip at the moment. I've got every confidence we'll come out of it and we'll play. We know what we're capable of doing, as we saw at the end of last season. But it is worrying when the things you've talked about, Seb, about the playing out from the back and putting the ball in places where we're creating issues for ourselves. The fact that we get back to a position of 2-1 and we don't see a change of pace in the game, or even an emphasis in terms of the way that the game flows. These things are concerning. And I don't know whether it's Conte ball. I don't know whether it's the World Cup coming up, the impending World Cup, or if it's a mix of all of these things. But something needs to change. That is for sure, because we can't carry on expect to get top 4 again this season, or to even do well in any of the cups playing like that.
Well, that's just it. I think we've seen from Conte what he can deliver. The tail end of last season was thoroughly enjoyable. It was that we had a sense of inevitability about us. We had a swagger, and we'll get that back. These are the same players. We've actually added better players, so we are going in the right direction. That's what I said. What was it Conte said? Time, patience, and money are what we need, is what he needs to. It's all about money with him. But let's get on to the back to the game itself. Becky, as you said, we did start brightly. There were a couple of chances for Sonny, and one of those goes in. There was the one that brushed the top of the net. That goes
stanchion. Yeah. Jack went. We worked Sonny at the stanchion, and it went over the stanchion, and they were from outside the area. But if you kind of super analyze the game, Lloris didn't actually make that many saves. Obviously, he conceded them, and we had a few sort of situations where the back pass went out and things like that. But he wasn't kind of, bombarded either. But yeah, I always say if we score, I know we haven't done against Southampton, but if we score first at home, it's a completely different game. The momentum, as Craig was saying, is with us. The attitude of, everybody's enthusiasm, all that kind of, the players do feed off that. It wasn't a start that we'd necessarily seen before. It was just a few passages of play, and there were some nice chances. But I've seen the highlights back on Wednesday so many times, and that one that Bentancur has in the first half, and Doherty has, those type of chances. Again, they were good chances. They weren't amazing chances. Probably the best one is the one that Kane had blocked. But yeah, so it was a reasonably good start. And then we conceded the goal.
Yeah,
I was fine with the start. Just to say, I thought we started really well. I think we had 11 shots before they scored in half an hour. And the Kane one, that save from Pope with his legs from Kane was a world-class save. I kind of dread Kane coming up against these England keepers. They seem to know where he's going to put his penalties, where he's going to put his shots. There's obviously a few of them now. But I thought we started brightly. There was one time when I think Son had a shot where I think he should have passed. I think it was his third shot. He looked a bit he looked determined. They looked all right. I thought Emerson was getting in some good spaces going forward. So I had no problem. I want to cover that quickly now. No problem with Emerson's performance at all yesterday. So I know he gets a lot of abuse. No problem with Sanchez's performance yesterday. There were other players yesterday that let the side down.
And on to that, Mr. Hugo Lloris. I mean, he is a world-class shot stopper. And this situation, I've looked at it, and I know that I think it was Ben Foster, or a goalie that has a Twitter following, said that it was a foul. Craig, I think that's legit. Where is Callum Wilson supposed to go? He just stood.
I don't think it's a foul. I just don't. What could he do? And it's like you said, there was nowhere for him to go. He's come out. There was nothing for him to do. It's the minute I saw it, I thought it's not a foul. I was praying for the offside, if anything, rather than the foul to be given as VAR. It's difficult, isn't it? It was silly from Hugo to come out the way he did. But then, we can't. You've got to be careful, because against United, arguably, he kept it credible. The scoreline credible and down, and he was unbelievable. So, with Hugo, ever since he's been at Spurs, it's been the same, hasn't it? He's liable to make that occasional gaffe or mistake, but he's going to save you more than he costs you. So I'm not going to be too critical of Lloris, but it definitely wasn't a foul on Lloris.
The thing for me is, because that was our end, and with Jack being a goalie as well, we felt that it was strange that he tried to kind of chest it or knee it, or what. I know he's outside the area, so he's not going to catch it. That's not what I mean. But why didn't he just stick his foot through it? Why did he sort of feel he had to kind of take a touch and then do something with it? Because it reminded me of, I know we keep going back to Wednesday, but we've seen 2 consecutive defeats in a row that are fairly similar. A lot of the times on Wednesday, they would chest it and let it drop, and then they'd lose the ball, or someone would close them down. And it's again almost like they've been told to do this, like you said about this robotic style. The players have been told to chest it, think about what to do with it. But in that situation, Lloris should have just hit it to the, over the West Stand. It was just the whole kind of decision making was a bit strange. And then he kind of goes down, and someone said, I watched Match of the Day this morning, they were saying that if he'd been kind of further back, he would have got there in time anyway, or he would have been in the right position to do something about it after. And looking at Dyer's position there, Dyer's doing a bit of a Højbjerg there, isn't he? Waving his arms and trying to kind of, but actually he should have stepped back, because then he possibly would have been able to head it away. It was all just like everybody sort of stopped, thinking that if that was going to be enough and it was going to be fine, and VAR were going to sort it out. I thought it was very soft. Seeing it live, it didn't look like he completely poleaxed him. I know when I've watched it back now, Callum Wilson's arm kind of comes around him, which is what some people are saying it is a foul. He grabbed him. But equally, we've seen this with people like Bale. They're running and people clatter into them. They're not going to sidestep out of the way. They're just going to take the contact. So it was all just a little bit silly, really. And it was a bit calamitous, which, and unfortunately, if we go back to the goal conceded at Arsenal, Lloris Sen, I said on here, Lloris should have shouted louder or kicked it, or Romero should have kicked it. It's just all a bit, and someone said it last week about Bissouma, they're all almost like they're so terrified to get everything wrong that it's making them more nervy than they need to be. They're not playing with a kind of confidence and a relaxed kind of confidence. I know that comes from good performances, but we are still third in the league and top of the Champions League group. So it's not like we're in the relegation zone, but the players are playing with a sort of nervousness that I've seen with kids football. You can't keep shouting at kids because it doesn't work. You have to sort of talk to them about how this is how you'd improve it. And I think maybe Conte's reaction is for some of them, it's changing the way they are in their own play.
Seb, do you think there's a point there that the players are too scared to get it wrong in the system? Again, these are professionals.
Footballs. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I do think it was a foul, so I'll be controversial there. Okay. I thought it was a definite foul. On the pod, I was talking. Me and Franco think it was a foul. Paul was sure it wasn't a foul. I think if you stick your hand out, as Wilson did, and semi-grab Lloris, that's a foul. You do it as you're a winger running down the pitch, and you go past the defender, and the defender sticks his hand out and pulls you back. It's a foul. It's a foul. I don't know whether Hugo should have been more decisive. I don't think he probably should. But yes, I do feel that we, every single player, pretty much to a man, is playing like pre-prepared patterned football, if that's how you want to put it. There's patterns of play that they must stick to, they must adhere to, they must be in a certain position at a certain time. You see it. You see Conte at the side of the pitch directing players exactly where to stand, whether it be a throw-in, whether it be a counter-attack. He wants them in specific areas of the pitch. And if they don't do it, as Bentancur didn't on Wednesday against Man United, you get an absolute rollicking, an absolute rocket. The rumour was that Conte called him a dickhead on the side of the pitch. After about 40 minutes, me and Becky were like, what's going on there? They were proper going at each other. So, yeah, I think, and all this Conte talk about, specifically about Bissouma and at times Spence and, got to learn to play my system. But, it's not, he's a good footballer. I'm going to put him in. Bissouma can run past players. Bissouma can do this. Spence can do that. Spence is an attacking wing back. No. You have to come in. You have to play my way. You have to stand where I want you to stand. You have to pass to who I want you to pass to. There's set patterns of play, and it's debilitating. The point that I've made on Patreon and podcasts and now on the YouTube is it's not just high risk football. It's how can I put it? It's kind of low percentage football. So we are. We've had it in the past with Arsenal and things where they've been accused under Wenger of trying to score the perfect goal. Pass. We're not necessarily trying to do that. We are trying to play out from the back every single time out from the back. We are looking for Kane or Bentancur to drop into midfield and pick up a perfect pass from one of the wing backs or central defender. It has to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, the opposition win it and they're through or they're in on goal. We're then looking for Kane or Bentancur to spin round and hit a perfect pass into space for Son or Richarlison or one of the attacking players. It has to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, it's so easily picked up. And again, because we've started to push up at this point, the opposition are then in. So the chances of that happening, and I covered this a couple of times on pods, are low percentage. Against Manchester United, I think it happened once where we got in and where Kane played a beautiful ball, a world-class ball. I think it was to Bentancur. Bentancur decided to take the shot. Had he maybe across, Perisic was in. That was the one opportunity that playing out from the back and playing that perfect pass through got us. One opportunity. How many times did we try and do the same thing, but give the ball away 30 yards from our goal? I'll tell you, it was 29 because they had 29 shots on goal. Against Newcastle, we tried to do exactly the same thing. The only difference was that we couldn't even get it into our midfield. This is when we were building out from the back. It's low percentage. The chances of you scoring goals like this are low. The chances of you giving the ball away to the opposition and then being through on goal or in good positions, as we saw with the second goal, are high, especially with the 5 players that we've got at the back. They're not good enough to do what's being asked of them.
Well, surely that comes with the time and patience and money that Conte has asked for to upgrade those players so that we can play this the way that he wants and that the players are comfortable on the bit.
Why can't we play a different way? A slightly different way. I'm not asking to rip it up and start again, but when it's not working, when it's so evidently not working, when we're at United and we can see in the stand that it is not working, you can't have 18 shots in the first half against you and think that that is working and we're going to carry on with that. You can't be 2-0 down through mistakes, through individual errors, because you are putting so much pressure on your defenders and think that there is not another way of playing. Even for 5 minutes, even to relieve the pressure. Go on, let's pump it long for 5 minutes. Let's see what happens. I don't understand. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Spot on, Phil. Exactly.
Yeah. Also, one question that came up in the let's go on to the second goal, but I just want to raise this now and ask it after we talk about the second goal. It was the kick out from Hugo, and they were pressing high. And this is exactly what you were saying, Seb, that we're so susceptible to being under pressure. Sessegnon again showing his lack of strength. Could not, and Longley just, it was like he wasn't there. Becky, it was a good goal by Almiron. He's in form, but the quality of the players out there should have been able to deal with what he had. It looked so easy from him.
I think, like you said, the kick out from Lloris to Sessegnon is kind of pumped into the air, isn't it? And then if Sessegnon misjumps it, he doesn't get it. He's then kind of challenged, isn't he? And it's kind of like a soft sort of foul, one of them ones. And then he's the wrong side of him and then trying to run after him. And then, like you said, put it through Longley, who I've quite liked Longley so far. I think the kind of being able to rotate with Davis has helped Davis. I think he's quite assured. Yesterday, he didn't. He played really poorly. Like you said, it was down that left-hand side, which is a shame because like I said, I quite like Longley. But yeah, they just, like we said, they just keep going. Teams are keeping going. We score, we don't change anything. We just stay as we're going. Teams are keeping going. They're knowing that they can keep going, get 2, 3, 4, and that's kind of how it was. But yeah, it was all in the race.
Those balls out from Lloris to those wing backs, they're just awful. I detest them, and the reason I detest them is because they're just high floaty balls, and they're in the air for 3 seconds. And at this level of football, they read that and they're on you, the press, and they're pressing you before we've got a chance to bring it under control. And the reality is, we haven't got wing backs of that quality at this moment in time that have got the ability to bring that down and get the pass off before that press comes in, or to beat that press of that player. We just haven't. And we persist on doing it. And I think it's part of what you was talking about, Seb. It's what they're being told to do. It's an option out, isn't it? It's that floaty ball, because we keep doing it. And we've been doing that all season, to be fair. And we've got away with it to a certain extent. I think, as I've said, teams now are pressing us a lot more aggressively than they have last season or even the beginning of this season. And we can't do it anymore. Something's got to change. We've got to try a different way, because that is killing us. That long, stupid, floaty ball over to the wing backs.
Let's not get too kind of depressed, for want of a better word. The PEH issue that we covered with him dropping in helps and has helped to alleviate that issue. Essentially, yesterday there was no one picking the ball up in the middle, so these balls were either from Lloris or from Dyer, and were going wide, and they're not good passers of the ball. Like I said at the start, it's just a surprise to me that professional footballers and a top coach can't halfway through or after 20 minutes, 30 minutes say, those balls aren't working, lads, or Bissouma or Bentancur, you need to come back, because Bentancur's done it before. You need to come back and get the ball off Dyer's toes. I don't care if it hurts anyone's feelings. You've got to do what you need to do to win the football match. Dyer's kicked it out twice. The Sessegnon one as well from Lloris. Lloris had done the same thing. He'd kicked it over Sessegnon. He'd played that same pass, kicked it over his head. It had gone straight out. So it's not working. Don't keep making the same mistakes. Eventually, it's going to bite you in the arse. And we saw it played out. That's exactly what it did.
Let's go back to the goalkeeping question then, Seb. In the summer, would you be looking to change things?
If Conte is still there and we are going to play this way, then yes, he needs he needs a goalkeeper with who's better with his feet. If you're going to get a change of manager and you're going to not always play out from the back, then Hugo is still one of the top 3 shot stoppers in the league. He's still a top keeper. He was unbelievable against Man United. Unbelievable in his shot stopping. Look, the rumour was Oblak, wasn't it? If you can get Jan Oblak in, then happy days.
I always liked Handanovic, but just because of his name, it's a perfect name for a goalkeeper.
Isn't he about 49 now?
I know, but anyway. Craig, how about you? Sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's similar to Seb, I think. I don't think he's necessary. I think there's bigger priorities in terms of what we need to spend the cash on in the outfield players than necessarily the keeper, which I think would have over the course of a season a better impact. So, if the right keeper's available for the right money this summer, then absolutely, I think we would have done it this summer. I generally think if the right keeper's available, we would have gone and done it this summer. I don't think it was. Hence, we keep him with him. I think it all depends on the availability of this keeper. I think they've got a clear. I like to believe that with the structure we have now, we've got a clear plan in terms of what we want, who we want that keeper to be, and if a person's available, we'll make the purchase. And if it's this summer, great. If it's not, then let's spend the money in other pressing areas out on the pitch. But I think for me, we can't forget what Hugo has done, the servant Hugo's been to this club. And I know you can't just say he's been an amazing servant and we should stick with him for that, for nostalgia purposes and all that stuff. I'm not saying that, but he saves us more than he costs us. As you said, against United, he was phenomenal. The only thing that didn't go our way was, the scoreline of the result, and he saves us more than he costs us overall. So in a nutshell, to answer your question, Brendan, I think there's more priority areas for me.
Becky?
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking then while he was talking, I was thinking Fulham. He saved that one at Fulham, didn't he? There was chances I can remember in the Wolves game. I've said this before, go back to, Champions League City when he saved penalties, and we've had Arsenal penalties, and it's, games I can remember. People forget. People were saying stuff about Sonny today. People forget. They just forget. They're just reactionary. Don't get me wrong. There are mistakes we've made this year that have been down to Hugo, but the way we were playing the back end of last season, it didn't really matter if we had some bad goals conceded because we were, 2-3, 4-0 up in some of those games. So it didn't matter. It's because we're playing games very tightly, and maybe 1-0. It's a big deal. I can remember in the Brighton game last year when we lost 1-0 when they scored right at the end. Lloris made saves in that game as well. But you're a keeper, like I said to my Jack. It comes with the territory, but if we're winning games 2-3 and we're 3-0 up, it doesn't really matter. Because I remember last year when Leicester scored right at the end and we were 3-0 up and it was 3-1. It doesn't matter. No one remembers. It's because the games are tight. And because he's being asked to play out from the back, it's just constantly at him. And to be fair, the fans didn't turn on him yesterday. He turned around the south stand and sort of was saying, he felt it was a foul. And, I know there were boos at halftime, but I think it was more at the, boos were, some of them were at the ref as well, because the ref was quite weak. Someone's just put now on the Spurs song sheet to say we don't want any booing on Wednesday and we need to get behind the team. And you're like, yeah, that's fine, but it's a two-way street. The players the players perform, the supporters want to see the type of football they've come accustomed. Yes, we want results as well, but we pay our money and want to see good games. And when there's a mistake and the mistake is there, at the moment it feels like we're struggling to get back in the games. And if we then, like we said tonight, carry on playing out from the back, there may be another opportunity. It's just quite stressful, really. Not enjoyable, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's Oh, sorry, I just turned my light off there. It's something that we do need to improve on. The atmosphere in the stadium, because it's so big now. It's almost a bit like Wembley. When I go into the games at Wembley, I never enjoyed them because it didn't have that cauldron atmosphere that the old White Hart Lane did. So I think now we're playing in a bigger stadium that, like I said, it's a two-way street. The fans and the players need to help each other out. In terms of Hugo, I think we should be looking. He's been with us for 10 years, is it? 10 or 12 years now, and we've won nothing during that time. And I'm not saying that's because of Hugo, but I just think that during that 10 or 12 years, the goalkeeper's game has evolved so much. There's so much more integral to modern football, and distribution is key. We saw that we sort of rushed out for Callum Wilson's goal, and he didn't really know what he was doing. He didn't have a plan, and that was worrying. Whereas other keepers, they're much more assured. They're much more, yeah. So yeah, I think that come the summer, we do need to consider replacing Hugo with somebody. It's not going to be Fraser Forster. We'll need to invest to get the right one in. So the half-time, you guys that were at the game, Craig, and how bad was the weather?
It was biblical. It really was. It was. I've never seen, I don't think, rain like it, apart from when I was in Florida on holiday as a kid. It really was bad. And I think the weather summed up the mood in the stadium to a certain extent. And the thunderclouds rolling in and the lightning coming through. It was pretty impressive. But yeah, I went and took shelter in the concourse for a while. Had a pint and let the worst of it pass. But it was it was phenomenal.
It just kind of came on really, really suddenly. Now, like I said, leaving Chester at 10 o'clock, we'd seen. I remember they were saying on the news as yellow weather warning for localized flooding in the south. So we all had, all the people that we met, we all had coats, and we arrived in glorious, glorious sunshine. And then at half time, Jack just went, "Look, it's raining," and you were like, "Oh, it's raining." And then we were on the front row. People were kind of going off into the concourse or just moving higher up, and it just like really came down really suddenly. It's kind of swirling about. We were saying we were watching the stewards, and the stewards were getting absolutely drenched. And then we turned around to look at the big screens because there was someone doing a Rainbow Laces kind of talk, and the poor people were getting absolutely soaked. And then we turned to look at the screens, and you could see the lightning behind, and it was the kind of like the zaps of lightning, and because of the pink sunset as well. And it was really quite impressive. And you could hear the thunder. And I think the thunder carried on for the sort of first 5 or so minutes, but because then you had crowd noise again, you couldn't hear the thunder over the crowd noise. But yeah, it was quite impressive. But then going back to the game, there were no trains to Cheshunt, so we had to get a bus and all the like underground, and it was all flooded. And to be fair to everyone at Spurs, the stadium was in really good condition because there was that much rain. The pitch was still in good condition, and so a big shout out to all the kind of people there because it was proper mega.
Yeah, no, that's amazing people that work at the stadium. Anyone that's done the tour will know the pride that the staff there have. This picture here, there's the smoking area outside in the middle of the rain. The sign actually, I think that it was shown before the game. So Spurs knew it was coming. So they gave it a test run. I think Steve Diver sent it. He gets there very early to enjoy the food and pleasantries, and sent a picture of that. And lo and behold, the heavens did open.
I must admit, Brendan, I thought it was photoshopped. I didn't see that.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah. Just okay, I will go on to Conte in a little bit. We did get back into those, Seb. Kane got his goal.
Did we?
Well, we pulled one back.
Mathematically, yeah.
Mathematically, that's getting back into it when you get it back to one goal, to within one goal. That's the third header, like 3 centimeters off the ground that he's done this season. He can just score from anywhere. But how were you feeling when the goal went in?
Well, how I felt was really positive. I thought there's still 35 minutes to go. We're at home. It's tricky weather conditions. Kind of everything that you would want for a kind of let's say historic but momentous comeback. Let's say what could be one of those days. Turn it round. We haven't lost at home since 1st of April, I think it is. This could be our day. Still got top players on the pitch. Crowd sounded like they were really up for it. What I absolutely hated, what was the worst part of the game for me, was, I was going to swear then and I won't, VAR after that goal, because I really thinking back, that if that's a clear goal and Kane picks the ball up and run back to the halfway line, bang, and you get on with it, it's like the crowd are up for it. There was 3 minutes of prevaricating of, is it offside? Did it hit a hand? Did he foul Trippier? And all this.
Trippier landed on top of him, didn't he?
Only for it to obviously, thankfully, eventually be given. But I felt like it sucked some of the atmosphere on. But I'm not putting the that necessarily. I'm not attributing blame there, because I thought the next half an hour was tripe, for want of a better word. I thought it was awful. And we go back to what we were originally talking about with lack of leadership, lack of balls, lack of desire, lack of really thinking that anyone on that pitch had it within them to change the game. I was astounded by it was just the same again. It was just the same old. And this is what we're talking about. There's nothing. It's not about formation. It's not about tactics. It's about kind of mentality and like all those
desire.
Words that if HG was on here, he'd be saying, "Oh, those are just buzzwords and all that." But there's no other words for it. Desire, drive, will to win, doing something different, inventiveness. Conjuring something out of nothing.
Had he made the changes by then? I can't remember if Perisic was on that side. Then he hadn't made the changes, right?
Sessegnon got booked 60 minutes and came off, and he was very, very poor.
And that was after the goal, the reason why is that. The reason why I was asking is that because the corner was right in front of us, and. Right. So he kind of whipped it in, didn't he? And then from where we were, somebody deflected on, and then you saw Kane at the back post. So when it then went to VAR, I was saying to Jack, they must have thought it was a foul, like you said, a foul. It didn't feel like it was offside. It didn't, from where we were standing, it didn't feel like it was. And then watching it back today, if they'd given that for offside, that would have been so unfair, because Sanchez didn't even know where the ball was. But then Sonny sort of turned around and was kind of like going this to the crowd to sort of say, yeah, we've just heard your atmosphere. We need that atmosphere, carry on. And like you said, then there's that massive delay and all the time wasting that they did yesterday as well, because Pope was just like doing exactly what he used to do for Burnley. He was time wasting from like the first minute. And then I read today that all 10 subs were made and there was 5 minutes of injury time. Well, how can that be if it took 3 minutes for Kane's VAR with, all the times they went down with so-called injuries and then all substitutions? So there's that side as well. I'm not making excuses. I think there's an element of, if we're still playing today, we might not have scored, but these sort of things come into slowing the momentum down and slowing. And I know that's what so-called good teams do. They come and they score at Spurs. Wolves did it exactly the same last year. It's just so frustrating, because that we've just adhered to. For that little spell of time either side of the goal, he made the substitutions, we scored. Conte was trying to kind of factor something in, but we still sort of played the same way. And I can't remember a chance after the goal. Like, not a clear-cut one. That one from Dyer when he headed it and was offside. I don't really remember anymore.
Perisic had one, I think, put through by Kane, but it was quite far out, I think. And but just on your point there, Becky, about the time, I don't know if it's call it time wasting, but the ball was in play for just 53 minutes in Tottenham Newcastle. I don't know how it's a new record.
It's a new record, apparently. 55 minutes is the average, and this is a new Premier League record, apparently.
So 55 minutes is the average anyway. So that's and we mock US sports and stuff and all the stop starts there, but the clock stops with US sports. So that's why there could be 15 seconds left, but so much can happen in that 15 seconds.
Well, like rugby, isn't it? They do it in rugby here, and I've heard a lot of people saying today they should be doing it for rugby. When you're there, it's frustrating because, like, to be fair to United on Wednesday, they never played like that. They kept going at us, and they was probably thinking goal difference and all these other things. Newcastle were not like that. They were just prepared to slow the game down. I said to Jack at half time, I don't remember Spurs coming back from 2-0 down at half time, but this might be the time. And I was saying stuff like this, but also we're saying that when the weather changed at half time, it's hard to get back in games with conditions like that. There may have been sliding tackles and someone had got, booked and sent off and all this sort of stuff. So I was trying to kind of prepare Jack that it may not turn out that well. But then you've got all the kind of stoppages. It just sort of felt like time was just draining away. And it's just unfortunately what teams do when they come to us.
But you've got to credit Newcastle, haven't you, right, for that? They absolutely...
Annoying as it is.
Yeah, but Frankfurt in the Champions League, we was doing the same. We was playing the same game, when we was doing exactly the same thing, wasting time, taking our time, goal kicks, Hugo, taking forever. So it's not just about teams do it to us. When we're in that same opportunity, we've done it and we do it. So it's just the nature of football, right? Particularly when you've got teams coming away from home and they get that, it's so difficult in the Premier League against teams like Newcastle and other teams that when they get that, certainly a 2-goal advantage, they make it difficult for you. They're going to waste time. So I've got no criticism of Newcastle for that, the way they played. I think we've just got to play better and deal with it better and make better choices when we got that ball in play.
At the game, Craig, just
our
quickly
passing
explain.
was appalling yesterday. Our passing, this is the adding on to Craig's point about you got to do better. 100%. You're not going to have a lot of the ball. When you do have it, make sure you're a bit better with it than what we were yesterday. It was all off. There was a chance when Bentancur got the ball and played a passer down the right hand side. It just went straight out of play. You can't do that. It kills. Not only does it kill the move, it kills the atmosphere. It kills the momentum. We never built up a head of steam. Didn't go to a crescendo. All right, it should have been more than 5 minutes of injury time. It's still 5 minutes. There was nothing. There was no. You want to pin them in. A few corners flying in, win some set pieces, win some free kicks. There was nothing yesterday. It was following on from United. It was really poor. And then the changes. I'm sure you come on to this, Bren. Excuse me. The changes I just didn't understand.
Well, let's go on to that now. What were your issues with the subs, Seb?
Someone else might need to talk in a minute. I didn't understand them. Obviously, I understood Sessegnon. Excuse me. I didn't necessarily. I know Skipper got booked. I thought he was actually playing quite well. I thought Bentancur stayed on the pitch through reputation only, and maybe because Skip had got or coming back from an injury. But I thought Skip was decent, so I wasn't massively happy with that. And then you just, the Doherty change and putting Emerson to centre back and Sanchez coming off. I thought Sanchez was better than Dyer, better than Longley. Just didn't know it, but if you ask Antonio Conte, he hasn't got the players to change a game on the bench. He says after leaving Brian Hill on, who came off the bench against Eintracht. And won us a penalty and played well for his 10 minutes and then hasn't seen a minute of game time since. I just don't get it. And I feel like he's so... if you're Jed Spence or you're Brian Hill, you don't want to be at that club. What's the point? He doesn't want you. He's made it abundantly clear he doesn't want you, that you don't understand his system. Brian Hill's been at the club longer than Antonio Conte. And the way things are going, and I'm not talking about him being sacked, that won't happen. But the way things are going, Brian Hill will be at the club longer than Antonio Conte. So use him, because we paid a lot of money for him. He's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing much right, but he hasn't had the opportunity. Yesterday was a prime example of bringing someone like Brian Hill on and seeing if he can affect the game. Because I felt when he brought Lucas on, Lucas did help change it slightly. We described him in the pod as an agent of chaos. He doesn't know what he's going to do. So how can Newcastle know what he's going to do? There was opportunity yesterday for both of those to be on the pitch. There was an opportunity for one of the best young wing backs in the country who can beat a man to come on the pitch, and that's Jed Spence. Bring on some when we're losing games, bring on some players who have a point to prove and B, might just do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. But, and we go back to the original point, that's not necessarily something that Conte wants. He wants players who are going to do exactly what he expects them to do. And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the thing. You're not going to get anything different because he's not going to do or play anyone different.
And he's just rotating the defenders, isn't he? So he's just sort of freshening the defenders up. And like you said, it's that lack of kind of attacking option that changes, really.
That's just it, surely. I mean, when we've got Kulusevski and Richarlison out, who would be the two main change, or one of them would obviously be on the bench. When we lose those two key elements of our front four, surely that does limit the changes that we can make in the final third. Like I said, bringing on Lucas or Brian Hill.
You say that, Brendan. Sorry, Seb. It limits his options, but he's still got options, as Seb was saying. He's still got Spence and he's still got Hill, who he could bring on, but he's choosing not to bring on. So when, and again, one of the slight frustrations and niggles I had was him saying in the press conference afterwards about lack of squad depth and everything else. We has got depth. There is depth there, but he's choosing, as Seb said, to not play two of them. For whatever he doesn't want to play them. So he's made that decision to reduce the squad effectively by two. He's got two players on the bench that may as well not be there because they're just not going to get game time. So he has got the strength in depth, and I don't know whether it's the club signing thing. Spencer's a club signing, not my signing, and he's, because of that, he's just not going to play him unless he really, really has to. But he's got the options there, and as Seb said, at that point in the game, what have we got to lose? Just do something different. Try something different.
Go 3-3-4. Put Lucas on one, Hill on the other, Son and Kane up front. You got 10 minutes or 5 minutes to go. Look, if we lose 3-1, who cares?
Because exactly my point. I'd rather lose 3-1 and go for the game than what we did, which is lose 2-1. And it felt at times like we were just trying not to concede again, not trying to get the draw, not trying to go.
I said to my Dave back here, never bet on Spurs having a last-minute winner. Because we are never going to be that team that does that. Because he's never done that. He's either brought more defenders on, shored it up, or like the game in Europe, wasn't it, where he felt it was over and he just brought defenders on, and he doesn't kind of go in for that change that the fans want to see. It's like this never give up kind of attitude, and it's almost like Conte's like, nope, we've got bigger things we need to deal with. This is the way we're going to play. So I said to Dave, never bet on Spurs for last minute goals.
Especially now that Steven Bergwijn's left. So it was the only one I could think of. Just looking at Conte's comments post-game, post Alistair Gold. At the start of this season, I said to you that we need time to go step by step and have time and patience and have 2 or 3 transfer markets to bring the squad to be competitive, playing 2 competitions like the Premier League and the Champions League. We're playing massive games. And there are players like Højbjerg who has played every game. And at the end, there was an injury because he was tired. So, with Højbjerg, it looks like fatigue. He was a risk, and it's a game. Kuti and for Rishi, he played with the national team, and then he had to come back. For Deki, our expectation was for him to have recovered much earlier. Instead, the situation was worse. We needed to wait. Lucas Moura started the season with this problem in his tendon, and now he's trying to recover a good physical condition. So, any positives from it? Like, what did you make of Skip's performance, Craig?
Yeah, really pleased to see him back. It feels like it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? He's been on the peripheral of the bench for a number of weeks now. So I thought he played well yesterday. I thought he did well considering he's not started a game since last January. January is the last time he started. So I thought he did really, really well, and pleased to see him back. Happy. I'll see what he's. Hopefully now he can take it and kick on for the rest of the season.
Seb, Skip was touted by Mourinho as a future Spurs captain. Do you still think he has a future with us, or do you think that by the end of the season he'll probably be loaned out or sold to a lower league team?
No, he's Spurs player and a good Spurs player. Bren, can I ask you a favour? Can you put that first quote on from Conte back on the screen?
Sure. The first slide, yeah?
The first one, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic news. If I'm reading that as a player, my question to him would be, we'll sign your contract then. if it's going to take 2 or 3 windows and everything else, and you want to be competitive in the Premier League and the Champions League, sign your contract.
Nelly said exactly that in the comments here. Well, it's gone over your face, so I can't see your face now. So
this is the point, and we're getting to after the World Cup. He needs to sign a contract, and if not, I'd pay him off then and there. I wouldn't let him see out the season. If he's no, I'm not going to sign a contract, I'd get rid of him. I love Antonio Conte, and I think he is the right man to take us forward. But you cannot say things like that if you're not devoting your future to the club. Otherwise, how can you expect the players to follow everything that you're saying? Like I said, I wasn't joking. There's a very good chance Brian Hill outlasts Antonio Conte at Tottenham. So, he needs to sign that contract.
It's interesting. To play devil's advocate, Seb, Antonio's never been one for big contracts, has he? Wherever he's been, and he says himself publicly, he's not wedded to a contract. A contract doesn't matter to him in the same way. I also think that by not signing the contract, it puts him in a position of strength with the board in terms of backing him in these transfer windows, right? Because he's saying to him, actually, I'm only going to stay if you give me the backing that I want in the transfer window to improve the squad and to get to levels that I want. So I think I understand why us as fans want the certainty of a 3-year contract, but it doesn't change anything.
I don't need a 3-year contract. I'd like extend for another year. I'm absolutely fine with that. If you're a player, there's rumours that we're looking at more Juventus players in January. I can't give you names. I just read that Paratici is going to raid Juventus again. So I can't think of a Juventus player off the top of my head. But if you're the Juventus right wing back, right, and Tottenham coming for you, Juventus are struggling a little bit, and you either know Conte, of Conte, or you've worked with Conte before, maybe, or something like that, and your agent says, "Well, Spurs want you." What's your first question going to be? I know what mine would be. Is Conte going to be there?
Yeah.
Right. You have to. He is the figurehead. He's the man leading the ship, and this is the problem that I have with him: is this kind of blame game that he likes to play. It's not ever really his fault. And I kind of get that. But if you're going to lead the ship and you're going to say it's other people's issues, you have to do what is right for the club and for the players at that club and sign that deal. It's that simple.
It's interesting. I mean,
is probably right. I expect that's probably the time. But like I say, if it gets to January transfer window and he hasn't signed, I don't see the point.
Yeah, but I think we don't. I think that no one's really certain for sure. But don't we have the option to extend anyway? Isn't that our option to extend as opposed to? I don't know. I don't think it's a mutual. I think it is our option to extend. So it's in our. My understanding is it's in our gift anyway to give that extension.
I think he will. I think that he does look happy. I think the players are happy. Like I said, he does sort of play. Was it stick and what's the phrase, Seb? Where like stick and stick and carrot.
Twist.
Stick and carrot.
Carrot and stick.
Look at it.
Stick and carrot. Either way, it works.
Carrot and stick. But the players do seem to like him. He's always giving them big hugs and after the game and stuff. Well, usually only once we've won. So I think there was a mutual respect between the players and the manager.
I think also the way everything was dealt with when there was the passing of the coach as well. I think those things stay with people. A lot of people talk about when they leave Spurs, they leave on good terms. It's very rarely that you hear players like Aubameyang bad mouthing clubs after they've left. That doesn't really happen for Spurs. So I think the way that was dealt with and the kind of outpouring of kind of grief that as a club we kind of had with Conte, there will be times he will remember those type of things. Okay, maybe I'm looking at rose-tinted glasses, but I think already in the short time that he's been here, he's achieved so much that things like that he will remember, and like I said, equally, if he goes off, fine. But I think it's not as clear cut as he's not going to be happy with the board, he's going to leave. I think there's possibly, like you said, the reactions that we see when he wins and we score, and that doesn't look to me like someone who wants to leave. Not certainly yet, anyway.
So just to let you know, Seb, in their last game, Juan Cuadrado played right wing back for Juventus. They're playing 3-5-2, and Kostic was the left wing back. They bought, doesn't they, the Frankfurt guy?
Yeah, Cuadrado's about 37 now, I think. Not even joking. So I doubt it'll be him. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we've got the World Cup, and I imagine they've got their eye on players, but I don't know yet again. I mean, this is completely separate subject and not one that I've really seen mentioned on social media, but I do wonder yesterday whether might get pelters for saying this, but a Giovanni Lo Celso or a Tanguy Ndombele would have been an option off the bench, and whether we'd done the right thing. Obviously, our transfer policy was stunted, I would say, in the summer through the fact that we literally couldn't get rid of the players that we wanted to get rid of. You know, apart from Bergwijn, we didn't actually get rid of anyone. So I do wonder kind of what that means in terms of anything that we're expected to do in January. You know, we've got no player sales.
Reguilon as well. Like, I actually really liked Reguilon. I didn't think he was that bad. He had good delivery on him. But yeah, you do sort of think, what if we'd held on to some of these players? But we didn't. We are where we are. So bring on January. This was quite a nice one that John stuck in the one sheet. See, it's not just us. Things are pretty bad all round.
Yeah, and being married to a Liverpool supporter as well. At the moment, we're both kind of sitting here going, "Oh, hello, you lost on Saturday, and we lost yesterday, and we move on to Champions League, where hopefully things will turn around." And yeah, there's a lot of, you know, I think personally, someone's just put in the chat then, what has Conte achieved? When I made that point about how he's achieved so much in a short space of time, I reiterate it again. We are third in the league after not playing that well and having lost 2 games in a row as well, I might add, and we're top of the Champions League group. I would much have that than in Liverpool's situation. Liverpool have become very, very erratic, and their players look exhausted, and the manager's snapping at everybody. And you know, I know there's a lot of talk about how after the Champions League final, the difference between Liverpool and Tottenham and how kind of things changed, and they kicked on and we didn't. But there you can see that there's things on the horizon for Tottenham that Liverpool at the moment are struggling with, and that kind of shows it for me. I'd much rather be in our position. Yes, they've got things in the past and they had a good season last year, but you know, they've probably already dropped too many points, you know, to kind of be contenders for the league. And that's not me saying that we are. But yeah, I would definitely prefer to be in Tottenham's position than Liverpool's currently. I'm not talking about previous trophies and previous history.
Yeah. Gavin put that in the comments there as well. They did win some trophies during that time. Only a few, but they did win a couple. And you're right, it's a cycle. I'd have liked to have had the trophies that they'd won and be in our position now when we're playing them soon. So that's a perfect chance for them to start playing well, like every team seems to do.
They haven't won away yet, so they play us, don't they? And they haven't won away yet.
Go.
Oh, so we're going hour and 10. So let's quickly look ahead to the midweek game. We've got Sporting at home in the Champions League this time. Craig, what did you make of the first leg? Obviously, we lost it with those 2 late goals. As I've said many times, I was at the game with a mate. So
who was that, Brendan?
Oh dear. How are you feeling though against Sporting? They think they did win the weekend. They've got a good young manager, which I'll talk about in a bit. But how are you feeling going into that one?
I would normally say I'm confident, but after the last 2 games, you just don't know who's going to turn up, what's going to turn up. But yeah, I'm you know, at home, you've got to always be more confident than not, haven't you? And I think we will. My gut feel is we'll win the game. It'll be a tight game, as it always is with Conte, and we'll nail that top of the group finish in style. But yeah, it's going to be tight. I'm not particularly excited about Wednesday, if I'm being honest, because of the tarnish of the lack of, you know, what we've seen in the last 2 games. But we should win. I'm confident we'll win.
Yeah, Seb, what were your thoughts with that? So they won 3-1 at the weekend against Casa Pia in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. How are you feeling going into it?
All right, yeah, I think we'll play 2-5-3. I think we'll put like 7 attackers on the pitch. No, I'm joking. I don't think they're very good. I know they beat us at their place. I think we're quite lucky that we're in a tight group because we play tight football. Don't think any of the teams will progress. I'm not including us in that, but anyone who gets out of the group, I don't think will progress very far. I would like to think that we'll win. But as Craig said, you're never quite sure. It'll be interesting to see if Højbjerg is fit, if Romero is fit, if Richarlison was meant to be 2 weeks, and I think that was 2 weeks ago. So we'll
there was
see.
footage of him and Kulusevski yesterday in the dugout yesterday, and they were both jumping up and down and sort of like they didn't look particularly laboured. So possibly. The thing for me is that didn't they have 2 people sent off in the last game
against Marseille? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so that possibly will affect their
including the goalkeeper, I think. So yeah, that's a good point. I'd be confident. There's a very good chance that we could be, definitive winners of the group after Wednesday. That we go into the Marseille game and it's a complete dead rubber. We even top of the group, finishing top, I feel is going to be very, very important. That's massive. Look, I don't feel. With some of the groups, it's that hard, especially with our group. Last 16 is to be expected, I think. Last 8 would be an achievement. Puts you in the, starts to put you in the top bracket. You do that a few years running, you become a top bracket club, and that's what we aspire to be. I find it kind of ironic though, where I think Conte made a comment about. All the games that we've got to play every 3 days and things like this, and it's almost like you chucking. I don't think any of us expected even at the start of the season to be going for the title. So it's almost like you're going for the top 4 in order to get into the top 4, in order to really kind of half wish to sack it off the next season, so that you can have a decent challenge for the top 4 again. Do you see what I mean? It kind of doesn't marry up. Conte would absolutely love just to have the players in or a game once a week. That's what he's known for. That's what he did with us last season. He struggles with this. So there's almost a bit of him that wants to sack off the top 4, sack off the Champions League to have a proper run at the top 4. It doesn't. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. But with regards to Wednesday, I'd expect us to win. I'd expect, let's hope that it's a bad week. As Becky said, we're 3rd in the league. I think we're the 3rd or 4th top scorers in the league. I know, 6 against Leicester and 4 against Southampton will help those figures. And let's just hope it's a bad week. And we are a different beast with. If we had Richarlison, Kulusevski, Romero, Højbjerg, let's hope we get them back. If we win, if we beat Sporting, Bournemouth, Liverpool, and Leeds before the World Cup, it's going to be a very good start to the season. Let's not forget that.
Just on Sporting's manager, there's a bit of a tidbit for you. That Ruben Amorim, very young, 37 years old. And I remember at the game, I said to Sandra, I was like, he's very active. He looks really young. He's like, he's a Benfica legend. He was at Benfica for years. And Sandra knows him. Sandro's mates with him. And so he's like, he knows he's got the intelligence. Because I think Villa was sniffing at him before they went on for Emery. Wolves, I think Wolves have looked at him, but I don't think he'd leave Sporting for Wolves. I think Sporting is probably a bigger job. And they played okay. Like Edwards was superb in that game. That run, his sort of Maradona run, Becky was good to see. I think they may come into it thinking they don't have much to lose and that they're expected to lose this game and go for it. And
they play that kind of counter-attacking kind of play, don't they? So I think, like you say, exactly, and particularly for him, but the way, obviously being from Spurs, is that they've got nothing to lose, and the group is so tight that things can kind of change. They'll want to kind of come at us, which is why I think if we get an early goal, it could be quite comfortable for us. But yeah, I think it's. I was saying this yesterday to somebody. I'm hoping that Romero and Højbjerg not playing yesterday is being safe for Wednesday. Do we have Richarlison and Kulusevski back? Mora's had another game more of minutes. We just said then about Hill. He played in the last one. Is that what? I think it's about who is in the starting lineup on Wednesday as well. We all think they can perform at home and they have it in them to do it. And we can't continue. We hopefully can't continue playing in this way. So I think, the team formation, I think, will be in the selection, will determine kind of how things will go fairly early on. Because I do think we have the quality to beat Sporting. They were lucky last time, weren't they? Having those goals at the end.
As HG's pointed out in the chat, they lost in the Portuguese Cup to a third division side in Portugal. Is going to be bad. So they aren't great. We should get the results. Let's get some predictions. First up, you, Craig. What do you think the score will be on Wednesday against? It is Wednesday or Tuesday. I always
Wednesday.
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 I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham.
2-1. A nervy 2-1 or
I think 2-0 and then we'll concede halfway through the second half and it'll be a nervy end.
This is how we do it. This is the Spurs way. Becky?
I want to say 3-1, but I worry it'll be something more like 2-2. One of those two.
2-2. So a win guarantees us qualification, or does it guarantee us top spot, Seb?
It guarantees qualification. It only guarantees us top spot if Marseille don't win. Is that right? So if Marseille get a draw, no, we need Marseille to lose. So we need to win, and we need Frankfurt to beat Marseille, and then we're definitely top.
Okay. But a win, I think the win is the key thing. We just got to get qualified, and then
the win is the key. But I don't fancy going to Marseille having to get something to try and finish top. No. There you go. If we win and Frankfurt win, which is entirely possible, But Marseille, for me, are the best team, other team in the group. For me, I'd expect us to win on Wednesday, and I think as long as we score first, we'll be fine. If we score first, I think it'd be 3-0.
Okay. Confidence. Let's look at this as something else that we put in the run sheet. English forwards. So looking ahead to the World Cup, there was obviously a lot of speculation. Who will join? Who will be the Kane? Say Kane does his ankle a week before the World Cup. Who's coming in? Seb, who do you think will come in for Harry if he does get injured?
Oh, I don't know about that. I on the chat that I was having, it was who would you take out of those, and I would take 4. I would take Kane, Tony, Tammy, and Rashford. I think if Kane is injured, I wonder whether you play with a false 9. I wonder whether you play with Foden and you none of those. So yeah, there's my answer. None of those. Rashford might start, but he wouldn't be a replacement for Kane. And the City boys are used to playing with a false 9. And you can include Sterling in that, obviously. I wonder if that would be the way to go and load up the midfield where we have got talented midfielders. You can't replace Harry Kane.
What about you, Craig? Do you think that Callum Wilson's done enough to get on the plane, or who would you take?
I think you. Yeah, I mean, you got to take. I would take Callum Wilson. I like Tony, but I don't think he'll go. Is my gut feel. But Callum Wilson I like. Marcus Rashford and Calvert-Lewin.
Okay.
So hold on, how many are you taking? Kane.
Well, I'm assuming Harry Kane's not there. We just said Harry Kane's picked up an ankle injury.
No. Okay, so if he hasn't, how many of those are you going to take?
Including Harry.
Yeah,
I'll take 4.
So sorry, who was it? Kane,
Wilson, Rashford, and Calvert-Lewin.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
Wow. I wouldn't take Calvert-Lewin. He's not had enough game time recently. Rashford.
I agree with Craig though, saying there about Tony. Is look at Tony's stats there. So at 45 games, he's got 20 goals. But that when he had his call up, didn't he, and he didn't play, Southgate, it just sticks with the people that he knows. So he'll take Rashford, because he'll know him, won't he? But on form, Tony should go. Tony,
I think he would go
as well.
I don't think he needed to play him. I think that was the point. And also, not only that, Tony, if you want a penalty taker, I know Kane's missed a few recently, but you've got Kane and Tony as your first 2 penalty takers. If it comes to penalty shootout, that's a decent start. I think I honestly think if it was a 23-man squad, Tony would miss out. I think with a 26-man squad, he's someone you bring on. And also the other thing is there's no issue with having a player that the opposition know little or next to nothing about. We've seen it before in World Cups and things like that. And it's a bit different now. Everyone knows everything about every player. When I was a kid and saw when we were all kids, Italian 90 and stuff like that, we never knew about Toto Schillaci before he came on. There's always that opportunity for an unknown player to come in and make a mark.
While we're talking about strikers, I think didn't Kane become? He had his 10th goal, didn't he? Is it the 9th or the 10th consecutive season that he's done that now as well? So
is it? I know it's his best return after this number of games.
Yeah.
He always has these stats, doesn't he? Because there's no trophies to help him, but he always says, "Well, I've scored 200 goals. I've scored this." Bless him. But so what was?
And
the
yet
stat?
He scored 10 goals this season, and I think it's like you said, it's the best return after 10 games. But I think it's his 10th consecutive season as well that he's had 10. But listen to the Newcastle fans on the platform yesterday. They were being, some of them, it's only a sectional, I'm not saying it's all Newcastle fans, were being vile about Kane. And then they started singing songs about Wilson, saying that, well, Wilson will go instead of Kane the World Cup. And I sort of had to turn around and sort of bite my tongue because I was going to turn around and say, it's all right having rivalry. Saka will go to the World Cup if he's there on merit. But the way they were being about him, it boils my blood because he's England captain and all the things that he's done, all the penalties he scored and all the games he's influenced. They'd take him in a heartbeat if they were offered to their clubs. They always say they don't. They won't want him. And he's this and that, not winning trophies and yada, yada, yada. But they would take him in a heartbeat. That's my little Kane rant over.
No, you're right. He doesn't really get the respect, I guess, from other teams because, like you said, it's tribalism. And but yes, when that World Cup starts, they're going to be cheering him on. And I think it's just it. Just if he can deliver a trophy for England, obviously there are fewer trophies to go for, but you'd like to think that someone of his quality that's stuck with us for so long will get a trophy. It's bizarre. Harry Kane, he is a global superstar. He's an incredible player.
It's the only thing he doesn't really have. Like you said, he's almost got every accolade going. Every stat that comes up, Kane's always at the top of it, or is aspiring to Kane. But he gets so much criticism from other supporters, and it's not justified.
Yeah, fully agreed. So let's look to wrap things up then, guys. We've done predictions. Did we do predictions? Against? Yeah. Okay, cool. I didn't give mine actually. So yeah, I'll say I reckon we'll win 3-1. We've got to start. And these last few games, I think they're a glitch. I think we've been through this with Conte before. The team has responded before. The end of last season, well, even the end, but so from say Feb onwards was really enjoyable, and we can get that. We've seen that. So yeah, 3-1, and we'll put the Portuguese to the sword. Craig, thanks for joining, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great chat. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks all.
Becky, great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much. So hopefully we pick up things tomorrow and things start to turn. And like you said, there's only 4 games now until the break. So, 5, isn't it? I think, including Forest. So if we just point to turn a corner and go into the World Cup with some positivity.
It's six.
Is it 6? Oh God, but we were getting close to the end. Oh, because the Marseille game, I've forgotten that game as well. Yeah, okay. But yeah, hopefully, thank you for having me on. It's been great. But yeah, we just need Spurs to kick on, please.
We will find that our rhythm, that what was it saying? It's the click. Hasn't clicked yet. We're still waiting for it to click.
Second gear.
Click. Seb, thanks for joining, mate.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, so I've done a pod and a YouTube. So given a lot of opinions. I hope they all made sense. I hope they all married up. I hope someone doesn't listen to the pod and say he said something completely different on the, on the YouTube. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're a trooper, man. And multi-talented, platformed. You're like the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You just switch from NFL to Premier.
Just full of hot air. That's what you mean. Just full of hot air.
So I'm sure there will be a review or instant reaction YouTube video for people that want YouTube. Also, the pod will be out tonight. As Seb said, he was just recording it. And keep the faith. Hope you've enjoyed this. And as ever, come on, you Spurs.
Come on,
Come on, you Spurs.